Hi, book lovers. It's Peg, the Book Prize Addict, back, and I am having so much fun since I rebuilt my channel to just talk about all the wonderful book prizes out there. This is really the start of the season for them, and some really good ones are coming up, which I hope to talk about. Okay, before I start, I want to show you a picture that was taken in the summer of 2018 when my husband and I went to Boston and we visited with Steve Donahue, the famous Steve Donahue. And one of the things we did is we went to the famous Brattle Bookshop. Now, this is that wonderful outside display that he's always talking about that has books for $1, $3, and $5. Now, one thing I'm a little embarrassed about, I look like I have more books than Steve does, but then he does kind of go every day. And I love the painted pictures of artists up above on the brick wall. So that was a real memory. If you ever get in Boston, you need to go there, maybe even see Steve. Okay, so let's get in with the books. I have 4 books, and I've given links to the book prizes that they're up for, and I thought maybe you'd be interested in looking at the other books that are in contention with these books that I choose, and just learning a little bit more about the prizes. I won't go on and on about the prizes. Okay, so first we have a book that's already up for several awards, and it was up most recently for the KIRKUS award, which you probably heard of KIRKUS reviews. I think they have somebody reviewing almost every book that's come out, and this is the first time I've actually seen the prize. Now, this is already on the list for some other prizes, which I'll talk about at some point. Anyway, God's Children Are Little Broken Things. Didn't sound like a book I'd like, but it was wonderful. It's 9 different stories by Arinze Ifekandu, and he is a Nigerian writer who went to the Ohio workshop here in the U.S., which many of the famous authors go to, and I've heard different things about it, but it certainly, I'm sure, put a polish on his writing. Though the 9 stories are about Nigeria, and at this point in the story, homosexuality is both illegal and certainly considered immoral by most people. And each of the 9 stories has a different boy or man who's in the coming out stage. And they are wonderfully written. They are so heartfelt. I just love this book. What was I going to say? Oh, there was one story in particular that showed more about his actual writing. A man who's in his first relationship is scorned by his lover, and he's leaving, and he walks through some trees and things, and there's the most beautiful symbolism that the author uses about the images of where he's walking, but somehow it shows his feelings, as most of us have experienced when we've broken up or somebody's broken up with us. This is just a great book. Okay, so next we have Limberlost by Robbie Arnott. This is he's an Australian writer and has already won several Australian prizes. He had a book called, what was it called? I thought I wrote it down. Flames, which won the New Australian Literature Prize, New Writers Prize. And then he had a book called Rain Heron, which I've seen around, which was listed for the big prize, the Miles Franklin Award. This one is written, again, about, it's almost a coming-of-age story, a boy in his young teens who lives in a river valley kind of out in the woods, and there is water. Water plays an important part in this story. It's during the wartime, and he's the youngest of several children, or several, and his two brothers are gone to war. And there's much talk about them wondering what they're doing. It wasn't that easy to, I guess, hear from them. So there's kind of a pall over the whole thing. But it's about really one summer that he spends, and he wants to do a lot of stuff to impress his big brother and sister. I haven't been in that position, but I think that happens a lot. I happen to be the oldest person in my family, and I won't go into that. Okay. Anyway, so everything he does is like hoping, and his big sister comes home, and he's hoping he can impress her. It doesn't work. Anyway, the main thing he does during the summer is he shoots rabbits. And he knows all the areas where the rabbits hang out and this and that. Now he also skins the rabbits and sells them to a intermediary. They make some sort of hats out of them for the army men. So he gets quite a bit for each, but he has to make sure the pelt is perfect when he takes it off. So actually, he wants people to think he's doing it for charity and going to donate it to charity. And his father's quite prevalent in it too. But actually, he's saving up to buy his own boat so he can impress everybody. So we'll see. I'm not sure if he's going to make it or not. One of the things, he's out a lot and sees a lot of animals when he's shooting his rabbits. And nature plays a big part in this. And I have to show you, stop it, an animal that I didn't even know existed, but he runs into it. Okay, here we go. This is an Australian quoll, Quoll, and he defines it as a super big giant cat-like thing with really sharp teeth and claws. I think if it was a cat, if it didn't have that snout, it'd be more cat. But anyway, yeah, he runs into one, and it plays a pretty big part in the story, actually. It brings out some things in his personality and his learning as he goes. Anyway, it's mainly about the summer and decisions he makes and how they really affect the rest of his life. So another one, well done. Okay, next. I have actual books now. Okay. Is from the Book Critics Award short list. The short list was just recently announced. Book critics are just what it sounds of the Society of Books. Steve Donahue actually mentioned that it was his prize. So I don't know, he is a book critic. Anyway, most of them are pretty literate, I might say. Yeah. Anyway, the one I want to talk about today is called The Furrows. And it's by a Harvard professor, Namwali, who writes this, again, a family story. It's about a 13-year-old girl named Cassandra, who has a younger brother, Wayne, and they get into a terrible accident on the beach. They go to this desolate beach for fun usually, but a terrible accident happens, actually more to the boy, but she passes out, so she's not even sure what happened. And the body of her brother, Wayne, is never found. And first of all, it shows how it just tears the family apart, which I've understood and often happens, divorces after the death of a child. And so her father leaves and goes to start another family. So it really puts her double trauma for her and her mother. As she grows up, it turns kind of really what's happening. She keeps seeing, she travels a lot, I guess, by airplane, etc. And she keeps seeing people that look like her brother or remind her of her brother. And it's still very much on her mind, which I guess is partly because they never found out, what happened. Anyway, so she's in another kind of accident and meets another man called Wayne, who is actually looking for someone himself. So anyway, it goes on. Of course, I've read all the reviews on it. There's some questions of what really happened here. There's some unanswered questions. So I would love for some of you all to read this and tell me what you think happened at the end. Okay, a good one. And last, I have Lucy by the Sea, Elizabeth Stout. Now, I've heard some people talking about this, and it's true. It is her fourth book, I believe, about the same characters. But you do not have to have read the others to read this. I maybe read the first one, but when I started reading this, I didn't need anything else because it's a story in itself. It does star Lucy, who we've kind of followed all along, and her husband, she's on her second husband, who has died recently. She lives in New York City in an apartment, and so she's kind of traumatized by that. But her ex-husband, who she was married to for 20 years, called William, there's a book about William also that she's written. They're friends. They have children in common, and he's single also. So I guess it was 2019, at the start of COVID, when we had just started hearing about it, he came over and he said, "We're leaving town." And she said, "Well, leave town? I mean, that's, she just didn't believe it, as many people didn't believe it, but he was very insistent, and he found a old house by the sea that they could rent, and they go to, and it's so evocative of the feelings you had when COVID started. We didn't know how bad it would be, or, I mean, it was a scary time. And she goes through this, and she really thinks he's going a little overboard. She gets in the car to go, and he's got masks and gloves, and she says, "Oh, that's a little much," And the further they go to driving up north, the more they see things like the rush on gas that happened. And it really brought a lot of memories back. And I think I'm ready to hear how other people handled COVID. I didn't even want to think about it for a couple of years. Anyway, they get to the house, and I'll leave you there. They have the whole winter to get through there. And first of all, they're told they have to quarantine for 14 days. I don't know if they ran into somebody who had, I'm not sure exactly what. But she does find out on the computer several of her older friends have died. And so it's just weird for them to be there out of the loop, but yet realizing it's getting worse and worse. So I thought this was really well done. And it's the first COVID novel I've read, and I thought it did a really good job. Okay, that's it for today. I'll be back with some more book prizes later. Bye. All right.